and single. I had a girlfriend named Mary. We'd been together for years. After graduating from college, I worked hard to provide for Mary, who was raised in a sheltered environment, hoping to protect her for life. We went to the same high school. Although we attended different colleges, our relationship continued. I finally felt confident enough to propose, and had just picked up the engagement ring when I discovered she was cheating. We had been together for 10 years. At first, I tried to convince myself it was a misunderstanding, even when a friend of mine, Paul, told me he saw her walking with another man, or when I saw Chris on her phone's caller ID. I truly loved her and was willing to forgive what I thought was just a momentary lapse. However, before I could forgive, she said,
"Jake, there's someone else. I'm sorry, let's break up."
A year passed since then, filled with sympathy from friends and attempts to set me up with other women, but I wasn't ready to move on. One day, I ended up going out to drink with Paul the first hadn't seen in a while. As we sat at the bar counter and made our toast, Paul mentioned in a sarcastic tone that she was hospitalized. He had seen me through my worst times and had a bad impression of Mary, practically saying, "Serves her right." We both came from the same hometown and knew her and her acquaintances. Paul had heard about her hospitalization through those connections. As for me, when I heard about it, I couldn't feel any sense of satisfaction. After all, we had been together for 10 years, and I had considered marrying her. Since the next day was a day off, we ended up drinking at my place after the bar. After Paul passed out drunk, I found myself thinking about her and fell asleep without realizing it, waking up to a completely new morning. Woken up by the doorbell, I opened the door, slightly annoyed at the early disturbance. There was a man I had never seen before. He said he was Mary's cousin. Her cousin? Why? I thought, still groggy from the hangover. As I struggled to make sense of it, Paul woke up to see the man, and exclaimed,
"Wow, it's the guy Mary cheated with."
As the man and I looked at each other in confusion, Paul approached excitedly, saying,
"See, I told you. That's the guy I saw with your ex-girlfriend. I remember his face."
Overly excited, Paul seemed almost childlike in his accusations. I turned back to the man, suggesting we move inside from the doorway. He introduced himself as Chris Miles. The name Chris flashed through my mind from Mary's phone. That means the affair partner is her cousin. No way, then, what's going on? As I was contemplating that, Chris began to share. That was a shocking story I hadn't anticipated. After hearing his story, I quickly got ready, let Paul apologize and go home, and drove with Chris to the hospital where Mary was admitted. It turned out Mary hadn't cheated at all. A year ago, she was diagnosed with breast cancer after a follow-up exam and decided to break up with me before undergoing surgery. She had a hunch I was planning to propose, so she asked Chris to frequently walk around town with her and call her when she was with me to make me suspect. She was frustrated that I neither doubted nor initiated a breakup. She took it upon herself to end things. I can't believe it. There was no need for us to break up. Chris looked at me sternly and said,
"Mary was only thinking about your happiness. She really loved you, so she made herself the villain and stepped back."
When I asked why Chris came to me after all that time, he explained that the tumor had metastasized to her other breast, requiring another surgery, and she was now significantly weakened compared to last year.
"Please visit Mary. Without you, she might truly die. I beg you."
He looked like he was about to cry as he begged me. When we arrived at the hospital, I followed Chris into Mary's hospital room. She looked to lose a lot of weight. She was surprised to see me and turned away, pulling the blanket over her head. Through tears, she yelled,
"Go away! Just go away!"
I hugged her from behind. Her muffled cries from under the blanket pierced me like a knife, filled with such anguish. I was crying too, clinging to her like a child, repeatedly shouting, "Mary, please live. Please, live with me." That's what I was shouting. How long we stayed like that, I can't say. When she finally stopped crying and peeked out from under the blanket, my face was a mess of tears and snot. Seeing my face, she suddenly started laughing. By then, Chris seemed to have left. As I wiped my face with the tissue Mary gave me, she gently stroked my head.
You know, I've lost both my breasts. You must hate that.
She said. I responded jokingly. I never minded the lack of them anyway. Earning a playful smack. Whether you have breasts or not, you're still Mary. I can't and don't want to think of being with anyone else. So, don't talk about splitting up again. I felt embarrassed by my own mushy confession later, but at that moment, I was just trying to be honest. She then quietly cried, her cheeks wet with tears. Her surgery had been successful, but her recovery was extended due to her weakened state. To fill the gap of a year, I visited her in the hospital every day. Day by day, she became healthier, smiled more, and by the time of her discharge, she had regained her gentle demeanor. I also reunited with her parents during her hospital stay, and we shared our joy. I had been quite fond of them when we were dating, and I was genuinely happy to see them again. Chris visited Mary twice in the hospital. He invited me for a drink from the kiosk, for which I thanked him. He was the same age as Mary and the cousin she was closest to. Therefore, he understood her feelings well and had supported her fully. As seeing her weakened by her hospital stay, he believed that no one but me could help her recover. As Mary's discharge day approached, I planned to thank Chris properly, not just with a drink but with something much nicer. Then the day of discharge came. With her parents' permission, I took her straight to my home on her discharge day. I prepared a variety of light meals, thinking she wouldn't be able to eat much, along with sweet drinks and snacks like those we have at Christmas. It might seem childish, but I decorated the wall with a bunting garland that read, "Congratulations for discharge." She was overjoyed and screamed with happiness upon seeing the room. When the meal was somewhat settled, I got down on one knee, opened the ring box I had bought a year ago, and presented it to her. "Even if you get wrinkles, I will always love you. So please, don't hate me when I get wrinkled too." I had come up with that proposal speech before her discharge, and despite Paul's teasing that I could have chosen something more romantic, it expressed all my feelings. She had pushed me away, not wanting me to see her without her breasts. She had shared that before the surgery, she feared she might die, and after the surgery was relieved we had broken up because she was shocked at her own appearance. She explained breasts were important to a woman's identity. She said it made her feel like she was no longer a woman. That's why I wanted Mary to understand that I could never dislike her, no matter her appearance. She felt guilty about losing her breasts. Let's say, would she dislike me if I aged and changed? Of course not. That was the sentiment behind my proposal. Understanding my feelings, she tearfully accepted the ring. She hasn't changed in the 11 years I've known her. Some might argue, but to me, Mary is just Mary. We're planning to get married soon. The thought of being with her forever fills me with indescribable happiness. Sorry for ending up just bragging about my love story.